I thought returning to Maple Hollow would save me, but the warmth in my father's house felt rehearsed, like a play I had not auditioned for. That night, the truth traveled through the air vents. "We do not need her anymore," my sister said. Then my father whispered, "We have to find a way to get rid of her." My blood went cold. They were not talking about clutter. They were talking about me. The floor of my office did not look comfortable, but when it rushed up to meet my face, I did not have much of a choice in the matter. I remember the hum of the fluorescent lights, the smell of stale coffee from the break room, and then the sudden, sickening tilt of the world. One moment I was reviewing a spreadsheet, and the next, I was looking at the underside of my desk chair. When I woke up, the paramedics were asking me the standard questions. "What is your name?" "Bella Price." "How old are you?" 33. "Do you know where you are?" "Yes." "Unfortunately, I am at work. I am always at work." The doctor at the urgent care was kind but dismissive in the way busy professionals often are. She told me my blood pressure was through the roof, and my cortisol levels were likely competing with it. She used the word stress like it was a diagnosis. Rather than the water I had been swimming in since I was 16 years old, she told me I could not go back to the office. She told me I needed rest. She told me I needed someone to look after me for a few days, just until the full panel of cardiac tests came back to rule out anything structural. I did not have a someone. I had a calendar full of deadlines and a cat named Barnaby who was affectionate only when his food bowl was empty. But as I sat on the crinkly paper of the exam table, clutching my purse, a strange and terrible exhaustion settled over me. It felt heavy, like a wet wool blanket draped over my shoulders. I called my father. Gordon Price did not answer on the first ring. He rarely did. But when he finally picked up and I explained, haltingly, that I had fainted and the doctor did not want me alone, his reaction was immediate. It was startling. He did not sigh. He did not ask how long I would be staying. He did not ask if I had brought money for groceries. He said, "Come home. Bella, we will take care of you." The drive to Maple Hollow took 3 hours. It was a drive I had made hundreds of times, usually with a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest with every mile marker that passed. Maple Hollow was a town that trapped people in amber. Nothing changed there. The storefronts on Main Street cycled through different failures. A bakery became a vape shop, which became a boutique that never opened, but the bones of the place remained stubborn and gray. I pulled my sedan into the driveway of the house I grew up in. It was a 2-story colonial that needed a fresh coat of paint, sitting on a lot that was slightly too large to manage easily. My sister's car was in the driveway. Tessa was 2 years younger than me, but she had always occupied the space of the youngest child with aggressive precision. She lived in the guest cottage out back, a conversion my father had paid for when she decided her career as a graphic designer was too stifling and she needed to find herself. She had been finding herself for 6 years. Usually, when I arrived, I let myself in. Usually, the house was dark, or the television was blaring news, and I would have to announce my presence like an intruder. Today, the porch light was on. The front door opened before I could even reach for the handle. Gordon stood there. He looked older than the last time I had seen him, his hair thinning into a wispy white halo, but his smile was broad. He reached out and took my overnight bag from my hand. "Here she is," he said, "the working girl." "Hi, Dad," I said. I felt unsteady on my feet. The dizziness from earlier had faded into a dull, rhythmic throbbing behind my eyes. "Don't you worry about a thing," he said, guiding me inside with a hand on my back. The touch felt heavy. It felt performative. Inside, the house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary. My stomach turned over. Tessa never cooked. Tessa ordered takeout on my father's credit card or ate cereal over the sink. But there she was, emerging from the kitchen with an apron tied around her waist. Her face scrubbed clean of makeup, her hair pulled back in a severe, sensible ponytail. "Bella!" she cried out. She rushed forward and hugged me. Tessa was not a hugger. Her body felt rigid against mine, vibrating with an energy I could not place. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Dad told me you collapsed. You work too hard. We are always telling you that you work too hard. I am fine, I said, pulling back. Just tired. The doctor thinks it is just dehydration and stress. Well, you are home now, Tessa said. She beamed at me. Her teeth were very white. We made up the guest room for you. Fresh sheets, the good pillows. I looked between them. My father, who usually greeted me with a list of household repairs he needed me to finance, and my sister, who usually greeted me with a list of personal grievances. They stood side by side in the hallway, blocking the view of the living room, smiling with a synchronized intensity that made the hair on my arms stand up. It felt like a play. It felt like they had rehearsed this scene 5 minutes before I walked in the door. I am really tired, I said. Do you mind if I just go lie down for a bit before dinner? Of course, Gordon said. You rest. We will bring a tray up to you if you don't feel like coming down. I walked up the stairs, counting the creaks in the wood. 1, 2, 3. The third step had squeaked since 1998. It still did. Some things were consistent. The guest room was indeed made up. The duvet was smoothed down with military precision. There was a vase of fresh daffodils on the nightstand. I stared at the flowers. Tessa was allergic to pollen. She hated flowers in the house. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for the feeling of safety to arrive. It is the feeling you are supposed to have when you return to your childhood home. The release of breath, the knowledge that the walls will hold you up. I waited, but the feeling did not come. Instead, I felt like a traveler who had stumbled into the wrong house. Greeting strangers who knew my name, dinner was an exercise in surrealism. I sat at the table, picking at the roast chicken, while Tessa and Gordon asked me questions about my life. Not the usual questions, not when are you getting a promotion or why are you still single, but probing. Specific questions about my routine. Who has a key to your apartment? Tessa asked, pouring me a glass of water, just in case we need to get your mail or something. No one. I said, the neighbor has a spare, but she is in Florida for the month. And your car? Gordon asked. Is it running okay? It sounded a little rough in the driveway. It is fine, I said. It's a hybrid. It's supposed to sound like that. They exchanged a look. It was quick, a flicker of eyes across the centerpiece. But I caught it. It was the look two people share when they are managing a difficult child. You should give us your keys, Tessa said, just so we can move it if we need to. You shouldn't be driving anyway. Not with your fainting. I kept my keys in my pocket. I did not know why. But my fingers curled around the cold metal fob. I think I will keep them, I said. I might need to grab my charger from the glove box later. The warmth in the room dropped 5 degrees. Tessa's smile stayed fixed, but her eyes went flat. Suit yourself, she said. We are just trying to help. I excused myself early. I told them my head was pounding, which was not a lie. I went upstairs, changed into my pajamas, and brushed my teeth in the bathroom that still had the same wallpaper from my high school years. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The guest room was directly above the kitchen. The house was old, built in the 1920s, and the ventilation system was a series of metal tunnels that carried sound as effectively as they carried heat. When I was a child, I used to lie on the floor of this room and listen to my parents argue about money. I knew exactly which bills were overdue before my mother even opened the envelopes. I shifted my position, turning onto my side. I closed my eyes, trying to force myself into the sleep the doctor had prescribed. Then I heard it. The scrape of a chair leg against the linoleum downstairs. The low rumble of my father's voice. I held my breath. The vent was in the corner, near the floorboards. The sound drifted up, ghostly and metallic. Really think she bought it? Tessa's voice, clear, sharp. She is tired, Gordon said. He sounded impatient now. The warmth was gone from his tone. She is not thinking straight. That is the point. I lay frozen. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. We have to move fast, Tessa said. If she goes back to the city next week, we lose the window. We don't need her anymore. Not like this. We have to find a way to get rid of her, Gordon whispered. The words seemed to hang in the darkness of the bedroom. Get rid of her. My stomach dropped. A physical sensation of falling that was worse than the faint in the office. What did that mean? Did they mean kicking me out? Did they mean cutting me off emotionally? But that made no sense. I was the one who supported them. I paid Tessa's car insurance. I paid the property tax on this house last year when Gordon claimed his pension check was short. I was the useful one. I was the checkbook. You do not get rid of the checkbook unless the checkbook had become a liability, or unless they had found a new source of funds. I pressed my face into the pillow, straining to hear more, but the faucet ran downstairs, drowning out the conversation. When the water stopped, the voices had lowered to a murmur I could not decipher. I sat up, shivering. The room felt hostile now. The daffodils on the nightstand looked like sentinels watching me. I needed to ground myself. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I turned down the brightness and unlocked the screen. I had 4 missed calls, all from the same number. No caller ID. Just a string of digits I did not recognize. I opened my email. I compulsively checked my work email. Even when I was sick, it was a habit born of anxiety. There were the usual updates, a few meeting cancellations, and one email from the head of HR. The subject line was simply, "Confidential concern." I clicked it. Dear Bella, we received an anonymous communication regarding your stability and conduct. Given your medical incident today, we need to discuss a temporary leave of absence while we review the situation. Please do not log into the company server until we speak. Regards. Sarah Jenkins. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My stability? I had never missed a deadline. I had never raised my voice. I was the person people came to when they wanted things handled quietly and correctly. Who would send an anonymous concern? The timing was impossible. I had fainted 6 hours ago. I looked at the timestamp on the email. It was sent 40 minutes after I left the urgent care. A cold prickle of sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I looked at the bedroom door. It had a lock. A flimsy push-button mechanism from the 70s. I got out of bed, walked softly across the floor, and pressed the button. It clicked. It was a small sound, but it felt like a declaration of war. I did not sleep. I lay in the dark, clutching my phone, listening to the house settle. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every rustle of the wind outside sounded like a whisper. Morning arrived with a gray, flat light. I waited until I heard the coffee grinder downstairs before I unlocked the door and ventured out. I needed to act normal. If I let them know I was suspicious, I would lose the advantage of being the invisible, useful daughter. I walked into the kitchen. Tessa was at the table, scrolling through her phone. Gordon was at the counter, buttering toast. Morning, sunshine, Gordon said. He didn't look at me. You look like you slept well. I slept fine. I lied. I saw a stack of mail on the counter near the fridge. My mail. I had my mail forwarded to Maple Hollow sometimes when I was between apartments or traveling. A habit I had never broken. I walked over to the stack. The envelopes had been slit open. I stopped. My hand hovered over a letter from Northlake Benefits Group. It was a life insurance provider. I did not have a policy with Northlake. Why is my mail open? I asked. I tried to keep my voice light, casual. Gordon turned. Oh, that. I just opened everything without looking. Thought it was a bill for the house. You know my eyes aren't what they used to be. I pulled the letter out of the envelope. It was a notification of policy servicing. It referenced a policy number, but the page with the actual details, the coverage amount, the beneficiary, the terms, was missing. The paper had a jagged edge, as if it had been ripped out in haste. Where is the rest of this? I asked. Gordon's face darkened. He slammed the butter knife onto the counter. It made a sharp clatter. Are you interrogating me? He asked. His voice boomed. I take you in. I give you a bed. And you stand there accusing me of stealing your mail? I stepped back. I wasn't accusing you. Dad, I just asked where the page was. You are imagining tension, Tessa said. She didn't look up from her phone. You are always so dramatic. Bella, This is why you fainted. You invent problems. She looked up then, and her face shifted. The annoyance vanished, replaced by that sickly sweet concern. You need to rest, she said softer. Avoid screens. Put the phone away. Stop worrying about paperwork. We will handle the mail. You just heal. She stood up and walked over to me. She put a hand on my shoulder. It felt cold. Why don't you give me your phone? She suggested. A digital detox. It would be so good for you. I took a half step away from her. I need it for the doctor, I said, in case they call with the test results. Tessa's eyes narrowed. Just a fraction. Right. Of course. I ate a piece of dry toast and drank half a cup of lukewarm coffee. I needed to get out of the house. I needed to be somewhere where the air didn't feel thick with lies. I have to go to the clinic, I said. They need to draw blood for the panel. I will drive you, Gordon said instantly. No, I said, I need to drive. I need to make sure I still feel okay behind the wheel. If I get dizzy, I will pull over, I promise. They argued, but I was already moving toward the door. My keys clenched in my hand so tight, the edges dug into my palm. I walked out before they could physically stop me. The drive to the clinic was short. I checked my rearview mirror constantly, half expecting to see Tessa's battered Honda following me, but the road behind me was empty. The clinic was small, a satellite office for the main hospital in the county. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and old magazines. I walked up to the reception desk. The woman behind the glass was new, someone I didn't recognize. She had frizzy hair and kind eyes. She took my ID and insurance card. Bella Price, she read. She looked up. Her expression changed. Her mouth softened into a pitying frown. She glanced at the other nurse behind the desk, then back at me. Oh, honey, she said. We were so sorry to hear about everything. I frowned. About the fainting? It was just a vasovagal syncope. It happens. She fumbled with the paperwork. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Well, yes, that, and just, your family is just so worried about you. It must be hard. What must be hard? I asked. My voice was sharp. She flinched. Nothing. Just go ahead and have a seat. The phlebotomist will be right with you. I sat down. My hands were shaking. Your family is just so worried. It was a script. They had been planting seeds. How long had they been doing this? How many people in this town thought I was unstable? The blood draw was quick. I walked out of the clinic feeling lighter physically but heavier in every other way. I did not want to go back to the house, but I had nowhere else to go. Not yet. I drove back slowly. When I parked, the house loomed over me. It looked like a mouth waiting to swallow. I spent the afternoon in the guest room. I told them I was napping. I locked the door. I opened my laptop. I needed to see the damage. I logged into my bank accounts. Nothing seemed amiss there. No large withdrawals, no strange charges. Then I went to the credit monitoring site. I had set it up years ago after a data breach at a retailer and had forgotten about it. I had to reset the password. My fingers trembling as I typed. The dashboard loaded. Recent inquiries. 1. I clicked on it. The inquiry was dated yesterday. The source was not a bank. It was not a credit card company. Crestbridge Legal Services. My pulse spiked. I could feel it thrumming in my throat. Why would a legal service be checking my credit? Lenders checked credit? Landlords checked credit? Lawyers only checked credit if they were looking for assets or liabilities. They were looking for what I had. I closed the laptop. I needed advice. I needed someone who wasn't part of this play. I dialed Maya. Maya Larkin had been my best friend since college. She was a paralegal in the city, the kind of person who read terms and service agreements for fun. She was sharp, cynical, and fiercely loyal. She answered on the second ring. Bella? You sound like you are underwater. Are you okay? I am in Maple Hollow. I said. I kept my voice low, whispering into the receiver. Maya, something is wrong. Tell me, she said. I told her everything. The fainting, the overhearing the voices in the vent, the mail, the HR email, the pity at the clinic, and the credit inquiry. When I finished, there was a silence on the line. It lasted a long time. "Maya?" I whispered. "Bella." She said. Her voice was very serious. "You need to listen to me. I am listening. You asked if they were cutting you off." She said, "But people don't check your credit to cut you off. They check your credit to see if you are worth keeping or worth taking." "What do you mean?" "I mean guardianship," Maya said. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. "Guardianship?" I repeated, like, for an elderly person? Or a child? Or an incapacitated adult? She said, "Bella, if they can prove you are unstable, if they have a medical incident, an anonymous work complaint, a pattern of erratic behavior, they can petition the court, they can ask for control over your finances, over your medical decisions, over you." "No," I said, "that's insane. I am 33, I have a job, I pay my own bills. And who is establishing the narrative right now that you can't do those things?" Maya asked. I looked at the door of the guest room. I thought about the open mail, the missing insurance page. We have to find a way to get rid of her autonomy, get rid of her rights. Can they do that? I asked. Can they just file a petition without me knowing? Maya paused. The pause was terrifying. "Yes," she said. "In some cases, if they claim it is an emergency, if they claim you are a danger to yourself, they can get a temporary order before you even step foot in a courtroom." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do I do?" I asked. "Document everything." Maya said, "Do not confront them yet. If they know you know, they will accelerate. You need proof. You need to be the sanest person in the room while you gather evidence that they are lying." I hung up the phone. I sat on the bed as the sun went down, casting long shadows across the room. Downstairs, I heard Tessa laughing. It was a bright, happy sound. It was the sound of a woman who thought she had already won. I looked at my phone. I opened the camera app. I took a picture of the door lock. I took a picture of the vent. I was not just a daughter anymore. I was a witness, and the trial had already started. The next 3 days were a masterclass in duality. I became two people. There was the Bella they saw, the fragile daughter recovering from a nervous collapse, shuffling around the house in oversized cardigans and drinking herbal tea. Then there was the real Bella, a ghost inside her own skin, watching, recording, and memorizing every microaggression and misplaced paper. I established a routine that was painfully boring on the surface. I woke up at 8. I ate the oatmeal Tessa prepared. I sat on the back porch and stared at the dormant garden. I went to bed at 9, to them. I was a battery powering down, but in the pockets of time when I was alone, in the bathroom with the shower running, or during the 20 minutes Tessa spent jogging, or when Gordon was mowing the lawn, I was frantic. I turned on every cloud backup feature my phone possessed. Photos, voice memos, notes, call logs. I set them to upload instantly to a hidden folder I shared with Maya, if my phone vanished, or if it fell into a toilet, or if it was simply taken away for my own good, the data would survive. I photographed everything. I took pictures of the mail that arrived, even the junk flyers, noting the dates and timestamps. I took pictures of the caller ID on the house landline when it rang, and Gordon snatched it up too quickly. Tessa was relentless. Her assault was not physical. It was atmospheric. She did not yell. She eroded. We were sitting in the living room on the second afternoon. I was reading a paperback I had found on the shelf, pretending to be engrossed, while Tessa folded laundry on the coffee table. "Do you remember that time you got confused about the electric bill?" she asked. It was casual, tossed out like a comment about the weather. I looked up. "Which time?" "You know, a few years ago. You called Dad in a panic because you thought they were going to shut off your power, but you had actually paid it twice. You were so frantic. You were crying." I frowned. "That never happened. Tessa, I have been on autopay for 10 years. She smiled, a small, pitying tilt of her lips. She smoothed a wrinkle out of one of Gordon's shirts. "You see? You rewrite things." You have always been sensitive like that. You get overwhelmed, and your brain just edits the scary parts out. It is okay. Bella, that is why we are here, to help you remember the truth. I felt a flash of heat in my chest, the instinctive urge to argue, to pull up my bank records and prove her wrong. But I swallowed it. If I argued, I was defensive. If I was defensive, I was unstable. Maybe, I said softly, I do not remember it that way. That is the point, she said gently. You wouldn't. She was building a narrative. She was laying bricks, one by one, constructing a wall where I was the unreliable narrator of my own life. It was terrifyingly effective. If I had not heard them in the kitchen that first night, if I did not have the cold, hard memory of my father whispering about getting rid of me, I might have believed her. I might have questioned my own mind. The breakthrough came on Thursday. Gordon announced he was going to the hardware store in the next town over to look for a specific part for the lawnmower. He said he would be gone for an hour. Tessa was in the backyard, wearing noise-canceling headphones, aggressively pruning a rosebush. I had the house. I moved quickly. I went straight to Gordon's home office. It was a room I usually avoided. It smelled of stale cigar smoke and lemon polish. The desk was a massive oak fortress that dominated the space. I tried the top drawer, locked. I tried the file cabinet in the corner, locked. Gordon was not a sophisticated man. He was a creature of habit. When we were kids, he used to hide the key to the liquor cabinet under the base of the ugly brass lamp on the side table. He hid the key to the safe inside a hollowed-out book about the Civil War. I scanned the room. On the desk, there was a leather coaster, stained with coffee rings. It looked undisturbed, settled into the dust. I lifted it. There was a small silver key. My hands shook as I picked it up. It felt warm, or maybe that was just my own adrenaline. I inserted it into the lock of the file drawer. It turned with a satisfying, heavy click. The drawer slid open on well-oiled tracks. Inside, hanging folders were arranged with surprising neatness. Taxes, mortgage, car. I flipped through them, my fingers walking over the manila tabs. Medical, insurance, Bella. I pulled the Bella folder. It contained copies of my birth certificate, my social security card, copies of bank statements from when I was in college, joint accounts that had been closed for a decade. Why did he keep these? Then, behind the Bella folder, I saw a green hanging file. It had no label on the plastic tab. It was just a blank white insert. I pulled it out. Inside was a thick stack of paper. The top sheet was a registration form for a company called Cedarway Holdings. I had never heard of Cedarway Holdings. I scanned the document. It was a limited liability company registered in a state halfway across the country. The business purpose was listed as property management and asset consulting. I flipped the page. It was a corporate resolution, a document authorizing specific individuals to sign checks and make decisions for the company. Listed as the managing member, Elliot Vance. Listed as authorized signer, Bella Price. I stared at my name. It was typed in crisp, black font. Next to it was a signature. It was my signature. Or rather, it was a drawing of my signature. It had the loops, the slant, the sharp cross of the T. To a stranger, it was me. To me. It was uncanny valley. The pressure was too even. The end of the name didn't trail off the way mine did when I was in a hurry. I flipped more pages. There were invoices. Cedarway Holdings had been billing consulting fees to various entities I didn't recognize. And there were transfer logs. I pulled out my phone. I took a picture of every single page. Click, flip, click, flip. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might bruise the bone. I needed to cross-reference this. I sat on the floor, hidden behind the desk, and opened the banking app on my phone. I went to my primary checking account, the one I used for everything: groceries, rent, gas. I searched for Cedarway. Nothing. Then I looked at the invoices again. The amounts were odd. $49.95. $79.95. I searched my bank statement for those amounts. There they were. Service fee, CH, $49.95. Deducted on the 12th of last month. Service fee, CH, $79.95, deducted the month before. Subscription maximum $49.95. 3 months ago, they were small. They were innocuous. They looked like the kind of charges you skim over because you think it is for a streaming service or a gym membership or a yearly app renewal. They were expertly camouflaged in the noise of modern digital finance. I scrolled back. 6 months? 12 months? 18 months? They had been siphoning money from me for nearly 2 years. The total wasn't enough to bankrupt me, maybe $1,000 over the course of the timeline, but it was consistent. I heard the front door open. Oh, damn it. Gordon was back early. I shoved the papers back into the green folder. I jammed the folder back into the drawer. I locked it. I slid the key under the coaster. Bella? Gordon's voice boomed from the hallway. I scrambled up from the floor. I smoothed my cardigan. I grabbed the book I had been holding earlier. I am in here. Dad! I called out. My voice sounded too high, too breathy. I was just looking for a stapler. Gordon appeared in the doorway. He was holding a small paper bag from the hardware store. He looked at me, then at the desk, then back at me. His eyes were hard little marbles. A stapler? He asked. Yeah, I lied. The strap on my sandal broke. I thought I could jury-rig it. He stared at me for a beat too long. Then he smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. We keep the office supplies in the kitchen drawer. Bella, you know that. Right, I said. I forgot. Brain fog. I walked past him, holding my breath. I could feel his gaze on my back, tracking me like a heat-seeking missile. As soon as I was in the safety of the guest room, I texted Maya, "Call me. Emergency." She called 2 minutes later. I turned on the shower in the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid. Whispering into the phone, "Cedarway Holdings." I said. I told her everything. The fake signature, the authorized signer form, the microtransactions. Maya was silent for a moment. Then she let out a low whistle. "It is not about the money, Bella," she said. "What do you mean? They are stealing from me." "No," Maya said. "If they wanted to steal from you, they would take big chunks. They would drain the account. This is smarter. This is nastier. Explain. They are building a history of consent," she said. Her voice was crisp. "Professional. If you are listed as an authorized signer for this company, and your personal bank account has been paying service fees to them for 2 years without you disputing it, it proves a relationship." "Relationship?" "It proves you are involved," Maya said. "It proves you are part of the business. If Cedarway is a shell company, maybe for hiding assets, maybe for debt, maybe for something illegal, you are now on the hook, and if they want to claim you are incompetent later, they can point to this company and say, 'Look, she tried to run a business and failed. She mixed her personal funds with business funds. She is confused. She needs help.'" I felt sick. A cold, oily nausea curled in my stomach. "It is a trap," I whispered. "It is a paper trail," Maya corrected, "and it is forged. But proving that is going to be hard if the signature is good. You need to verify the bank connection." I went to the bank an hour later. I told Tessa I needed to deposit a check from work that had arrived in the mail. It was a lie. I used mobile deposit for everything, but it was a plausible excuse to leave the house. Maple Hollow Community Bank was a brick building that smelled of floor wax and old pennies. It was the only bank in town. The tellers knew everyone's business. I walked up to the counter. The woman behind the glass was named Susan. She had been there since I was in high school. "Hi." "Susan?" I said. "Bella Price," she said. "I heard you were back in town. How are you holding up?" I ignored the pity in her voice. "I am fine. Thanks. Listen, I need to ask about a connection on my account. I am seeing some charges for a company called Cedarway Holdings, and I wanted to see the authorization for those drafts." Susan tapped on her keyboard. Her face went blank. "I see the transactions," she said. "A CH transfers. Electronic. Right. Can you tell me who initiated them? Or what account they are going to?" Susan frowned. She lowered her voice. "That is a business account. Bella, I cannot give you details on an account you are not a signer on. But I am a signer. I said, I saw the resolution. My name is on it. Susan hesitated. Let me check the business registry. She typed for a long time. I watched her reflection in the glass. She looked uncomfortable. Okay, she said slowly. You are listed as an authorized representative. Great, I said. Can I see the signature card? I just want to verify which version of my signature they have on file. I think there might be a mix-up. Susan looked at the manager's office in the back. The door was closed. I really shouldn't, she said. Please, Susan, I am the signer. It is my right to see my own signature. She sighed. She opened a drawer and pulled out a file folder. She verified my ID again, then slid a piece of paper across the marble counter. Here, I looked down. There it was, the same signature I had seen in Gordon's office. The loop on the B was slightly too wide. The P in Price lacked the sharp downstroke I always used. It was close. It was terrifyingly close, but it wasn't mine. When was this dated? I asked. October 12th, 2 years ago. Susan said, Was I here? I asked. Did I come into the branch to sign this? Susan squinted at the paper. No, it says here the documents were notarized remotely and mailed in. Remotely. Thank you. Susan, I said. I slid the paper back. Everything okay? She asked. Just clearing up some confusion. I said. I walked out of the bank into the bright, blinding sunlight of Main Street. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope over a canyon. They had forged my signature. They had notarized it. How? And they had been slowly, methodically entangling me in a fake business for 2 years. This wasn't an impulsive decision to get rid of me, because I fainted. This was a long con. My fainting spell just gave them the opening they had been waiting for. When I got back to the house, the atmosphere had shifted. It was heavier. Gordon was in the living room, pacing. Tessa was sitting on the arm of the sofa. Swinging her leg. Where were you? Gordon asked. The bank. I said, like I told you, depositing a check. Gordon stopped pacing. He turned to me. He put on his benevolent father mask, the one that looked almost real. Bella, he said, we have been talking, Tessa and I. Oh? I clutched my purse tighter. We think you are trying to do too much, he said, running errands, checking emails, worrying about money. It is not good for your recovery. The doctor said stress is the trigger. I am fine. Dad? No, you are not. Tessa cut in. You look pale. You are shaking right now. Look at your hands. I looked down. My hands were shaking, not from weakness, but from rage. Gordon took a step toward me. I want to help you, sweetheart. I want to take the load off. I think it would be best if you let me handle the complicated stuff for a while, just until you are back on your feet. Complicated stuff? I asked. Bills, insurance, calls. He held out his hand. Why don't you give me your phone? And your laptop. We will just put them in the safe for a few days. Let you really unplug. The air in the room vanished. My phone was my lifeline. It was my camera. It was my recorder. It was my connection to Maya. If I gave it to him, I was dead. Not literally, maybe, but Bella Price, the independent woman, would cease to exist. I would become the Bella they wanted. Silent, confused, isolated. I forced a smile. It felt like stretching rubber over a skull. That is so sweet of you. Dad, I said. I made my voice syrupy. But I actually use my phone for meditation apps and audiobooks. I can't sleep without them. Gordon's hand didn't drop. We can get you a radio, he said. A real radio? No, I said. I stepped back. I kept my tone polite. But I hardened the edges. I am keeping my phone. I am an adult, not a child grounded for bad grades. I appreciate the offer, but the answer is no. Silence. It stretched for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Gordon's face went red. A vein throbbed in his temple. For a second, I thought he was going to lunge at me. I thought he was going to physically rip the purse from my shoulder. Then Tessa laughed. It was a nervous, jagged sound. Okay, she said. Okay, we are just suggesting it. No need to get defensive. Bella. God. You are so intense. Gordon lowered his hand slowly. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Bella, we are only thinking of you. I know. I said, I am going to go lie down. I walked up the stairs, my back pricked with the sensation of being watched. I felt like a gazelle walking away from a pair of lions, exposing my neck, daring them to bite. I went into the guest room. I locked the door. Then I took the desk chair and wedged it under the doorknob. It was not enough. I needed to know what they were planning. They had mentioned a timeline. If she goes back to the city next week, we lose the window. I waited until the house was dark. I waited until the television downstairs was turned off, and I heard the heavy tread of my father going to his room down the hall, and the lighter steps of Tessa retreating to the guest cottage out back. But Tessa didn't go out back tonight. I heard her voice in the kitchen, and I heard Gordon join her. They were whispering again. I grabbed my phone. I opened the voice memo app. I lay down on the floor, pressing my ear and the microphone against the metal grate of the vent. The sound was faint, distorted by the echo of the ducks. Tomorrow, Gordon was saying, we cannot wait. She is suspicious, Tessa said. Did you see her face when you asked for the phone? She knows something. She doesn't know anything, Gordon snapped. She is guessing. She is paranoid, which helps us. Actually, if she acts paranoid in front of the judge, it proves the point. The judge. My blood ran cold. I checked the recording level. The red waveform was jumping. It was catching it. What about the letter? Tessa asked. I have it, Gordon said. The doctor letter is done. It says she is an imminent risk, unable to care for herself, financial erraticism. But she hasn't seen that doctor. Tessa said, It doesn't matter, Gordon said. His voice dropped lower. A harsh rasp. Once the temporary order is signed, she won't be allowed to make her own legal decisions anyway. We get the guardianship, we get the access to the accounts, and we settle the Cedarway debt before the audit hits. Cedarway debt, audit, so that was it. They weren't just using me as a shield. They were using me as a scapegoat. They had run up debt, maybe massive debt, in this fake company's name, and they were planning to dump it all on me. Bella Price, the incompetent, mentally unstable daughter who made bad business deals. When is the hearing date? Tessa asked. Monday, Gordon said. 9 a.m, ex parte. That means we go in without her, without me. We just need to keep her here through the weekend. Gordon said, keep her calm. Keep her off the roads. And for God's sake, do not let her talk to anyone outside. I stopped the recording. My hand was sweating so much the phone almost slipped out of my grip. Monday. Today was Thursday. I had 3 days. 3 days before they walked into a courtroom and erased me. 3 days before they used a fake doctor's letter and a forged business history to tell a judge that I was broken, and they were the only ones who could fix me. I sat up. I uploaded the recording to the cloud. Then I sent a text to Maya. Monday morning, emergency hearing. They are going for it. I looked at the window. The night outside was black and thick. The house felt like a coffin closing. I was not safe here, but I couldn't leave. If I left, they would claim I had run away in a manic state. They would use my flight as proof of my instability. No, I had to stay. I had to let them think they were winning. I pulled the blanket up to my chin, staring at the locked door with the chair wedged under the handle. I would stay, but I would not be the victim they expected. We don't need her anymore, Tessa had said. They were wrong. They needed me desperately. They needed me to be their patsy, and I was going to make sure that need destroyed them. Friday morning arrived with the heavy, damp silence of a storm holding its breath. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, my phone plugged into the wall charger, watching the battery icon pulse. It was the only thing in the room that felt alive in a way I understood. Maya had been working through the night. I knew this because the timestamp on her text was 4 a.m. I found it. The message read, Cedarway Holdings. Check your secure folder. I opened the app, my thumb hovering over the screen. The file was a PDF, dense with public record data. Maya had pulled the corporate filings from the Secretary of State's office in Riverton. Riverton was a state known for its lax corporate transparency laws. a haven for shell companies and privacy seekers. I scrolled through the document. Cedarway Holdings, LLC. Use property management and asset consulting. The address listed was a suite number in a glass-walled office park in a city I had never visited. Maya had added a note in red text next to it. Virtual office. It is a mail drop. No physical staff, no desks, just a slot in a wall. And then, the organizer, Elliot Vance. The name meant nothing to me. I stared at it, willing a face to appear in my mind. But there was nothing. A stranger who had forged my signature, created a company, and successfully integrated himself into my banking history. I switched back to my text thread with Maya. "Who is Elliot Vance?" I typed. "Working on it." She replied instantly. "He has a thin digital footprint. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, but I found a connection to a defunct debt collection agency in the Midwest. He is a ghost. Bella, a professional ghost." I put the phone down. A ghost. I needed coffee. I needed to walk downstairs and pretend that I was not harboring a dossier of evidence against the people sleeping down the hall. The kitchen was bright and smelled aggressively of lemon polish. Tessa was already there, leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone with a small, private smile on her face. She looked younger like this, her hair messy, the severe lines of her resentment smoothed out by whatever she was reading. "Good morning," I said. She jumped, nearly dropping the phone. She slammed it face down on the granite counter. "Jesus, Bella," she said, clutching her chest. "You walk so quietly. It is creepy." "Sorry," I said. I moved toward the coffee pot. I just wanted some caffeine. Tessa watched me. Her guard was up, the smile replaced by that vigilant, assessing stare. But she had been distracted. She had been happy. I poured my coffee, keeping my back to her. "Who were you texting?" I asked. "You looked happy." "Nobody," she said quickly. "Just a friend." I turned around, leaning against the refrigerator. The phone was still face down between us. Then, it vibrated. The screen lit up. I have always had excellent peripheral vision. It is a survival trait when you grow up in a house where moods shift like weather. I saw the banner notification before the screen went dark again. Message from Elliot. "Can't wait for the weekend. We are going to celebrate big." Elliot. The name slammed into me. Elliot Vance. I took a sip of coffee, forcing my hand to remain steady. The ceramic mug felt hot against my cold palms. "Elliot," I said, "is that the friend?" Tessa froze. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. Her face went rigid. "How did you see that?" She snapped. "The screen lit up," I said. I shrugged, feigning disinterest. "It is a nice name. Is he new?" "You never mentioned an Elliot." Tessa grabbed the phone and shoved it into the pocket of her oversized hoodie. Her movements were jerky, defensive. "He is just a guy," she said. "We have been seeing each other for a while. Not that it is any of your business." "A while?" I asked. "Like 2 years?" The question hung in the air. I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was wondering how much I knew, how much I was guessing. "Why are you snooping?" she hissed. Her voice rose, sharp and brittle. "You come back here. You take over the house. And now you are spying on my private life? This is exactly why Dad is worried about you. You have no boundaries. I am not snooping." "Tessa, I just saw a name." "You are obsessed," she said. She was backing away toward the back door, putting distance between us. "You need to focus on getting better. Bella, stop trying to control everyone else." She turned and marched out the back door, letting the screen slam shut behind her. I stood alone in the kitchen. Elliot Vance was not a stranger. He was Tessa's boyfriend. The picture snapped into focus with terrifying clarity. The service fees, the forged signature. Tessa wasn't just a participant. She was likely the architect, or at least the conduit. She had given him my information. She had likely given him samples of my handwriting. We are going to celebrate big. They were celebrating the hearing. They were celebrating the payout. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting Maya. It was an email notification. My work email. I felt a reflex of dread. I had been avoiding my inbox since the anonymous concern email, terrified of what I would find. But the subject line was urgent. Subject: immediate discussion required. It was from my boss, David, who had promoted me twice. David, who had sent me a fruit basket when I had the flu last year. I opened it. Bella, we need to have a check-in immediately. I have received a formal complaint from 2 junior staff members alleging that you have been approaching them for personal loans and expressing extreme financial desperation. They reported that you made them feel pressured and uncomfortable. This behavior is a violation of our code of conduct, given the previous report regarding your stability. HR is advising a formal suspension pending a review. Please do not contact any staff members. David, I stared at the words. Pressuring coworkers for loans. It was a lie. It was a grotesque, absurd lie. I had more savings than most of the junior staff combined. I had never asked anyone for a dime. But as I stood there, clutching the counter, I realized the brilliance of it. It wasn't designed to be true. It was designed to be corroboration. If my family went to court and said, Bella is financially unstable and erratic, the judge might ask for proof, and then, magically, there would be a report from my employer stating that I was begging for money and harassing colleagues. It was a pincer movement. They were destroying my reputation to validate their fraud. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to put the coffee mug down before I dropped it. I was being erased. The Bella Price, who was reliable, solvent, and professional, was being overwritten by a desperate, manic doppelganger. I needed to leave. I could not stay in this house another hour. I needed to see Maya. I needed to see a lawyer. I needed to look at a human being who did not want to consume me. I ran upstairs to the guest room. I threw on a pair of jeans and a sweater. I grabbed my purse. I checked my pocket for my car keys. Empty. I checked the nightstand. Empty. I dumped the contents of my purse onto the bed. Wallet, lip balm, tissues, charger, no keys. I felt a spike of panic, hot and sharp. I had put them in my pocket yesterday when I came back from the bank. I was sure of it. I ran downstairs. Gordon was in the living room, watching the morning news. He looked up as I rushed in. Dad, I said, where are my keys? Gordon muted the television. He looked at me with that calm, patient expression that made me want to scream. Your keys? He asked. My car keys. They were in my room. Now they are gone. Oh, he said. He stood up slowly, groaning a little as he straightened his back. I put them somewhere safe. Honey, safe? I repeated. Why? You seemed so dizzy yesterday. Bella, coming back from the bank. You looked pale. I was worried you might try to drive and hurt yourself, or someone else. I am not dizzy. I said, I am fine. Give me my keys. Gordon sighed. He walked over to me and put his hands on my shoulders. He was a big man, and his grip was firm. I cannot do that. Bella, if I let you drive and you crash, I would never forgive myself. You are under my roof. You are my responsibility. I am 33 years old. I pulled away from him. You cannot take my car. That is theft. It is protection, he said softly. His voice was sad. Look at you. You are shouting. You are shaking. You are not in a state to be behind the wheel. I stared at him. He was using my reaction to his abuse as proof of my instability. It was a perfect, closed loop. Fine, I said. I forced my voice to drop. Fine, keep the keys. I will take a rideshare. I turned and walked to the front door. Go ahead, Gordon called after me. If you think that is best. I walked out onto the porch. The air was cool. I sat on the swing and opened the rideshare app on my phone. My hands were trembling. I typed in the destination, the coffee mill, Greyhaven. It was a 30-minute ride. Confirming driver. Driver found. 8 minutes away. I let out a breath. I watched the little car icon move on the map. Then, the notification popped up. Ride canceled by driver. I frowned. I tried again. Driver found. 12 minutes away. 2 minutes later. Ride canceled. I stared at the screen. A message appeared in the app inbox. Account notice. Your pickup location has been flagged as unsafe for drivers due to repeated aggressive behavior reports. Please update your location. My mouth fell open. Aggressive behavior? I hadn't used the app in Maple Hollow in years. Then I remembered Tessa's phone, the way she lived on it. She hadn't just reported me. She must have created a burner account, ordered rides to this address over the last few days, and then harassed the drivers or created a scene. Or maybe she just reported the address itself through some support channel, claiming a dangerous dog or a hostile resident. I was grounded. I was trapped in suburbia, miles from the nearest bus stop, without a car and without a ride. The invisible net tightened. They weren't using chains or ropes. They were using the algorithms of modern life to lock me in. I went back inside. I walked past Gordon without looking at him. "Back so soon?" he asked pleasantly. I didn't answer. I went to the guest room and locked the door. I wedged the chair under the handle again. I needed a secure line. My phone felt compromised. If they had access to my rideshare account, what else did they have? Did they have a keylogger on my phone? Was Tessa reading my texts to Maya? I looked at the closet. My mother used to keep old electronics in a plastic bin on the top shelf. She never threw anything away. "You never know when you might need a spare part," she used to say. I dragged the desk chair over to the closet and climbed up. I pulled down a heavy plastic tote. Dust motes danced in the sunlight. I opened the lid. Cables. An old clock radio, a broken tablet, and at the bottom, a laptop. It was a thick, gray block of plastic. My college laptop, a Dell from a decade ago. I pulled it out. It was heavy. I found the power brick tangled in the snake pit of cords. I plugged it in. I pressed the power button. I waited. The fan whirred to life, sounding like a jet engine. The screen flickered, then glowed with the Windows 7 logo. It booted. I didn't try to connect to the house Wi-Fi. That would be suicide. They would see the new device on the router log. I used my phone to create a hotspot. But I changed the name of the network to HP Printer Secure so it would look innocuous if anyone scanned for networks. I connected the old laptop. I immediately downloaded a secure browser. I didn't log into my Chrome account. I didn't want any cookies or history syncing. I created a new, encrypted email address, Proton Mail. I emailed Maya, "Com channel compromised. Use this address only. I am trapped." They took my keys. They blocked rideshare. I spent the next 2 hours wiping the laptop of old files, essays on Shakespeare, photos of college parties, and turning it into a fortress. I downloaded copies of the bank statements, the Cedarway documents, the photos of the mail. I saved them all to the local hard drive and then uploaded them to the encrypted drive Maya used. I was building a bunker, but I needed the smoking gun. I needed the why. The Cedarway debt was part of it, but people don't go to this much trouble just to offload debt. There had to be an asset. I thought about the letter from Northlake Benefits, the one with the missing page. I picked up my phone. I turned off the Wi-Fi. I dialed the customer service number for Northlake. A robotic voice answered. "Please enter your policy number." I didn't have it. I pressed 0. Representative. A woman answered. "Northlake Benefits. This is Karen." "Hi, Karen," I said. I tried to sound breezy, unconcerned. "This is Bella Price. I am calling because I think I lost a page of my policy update. I just wanted to confirm my beneficiary information. I want to make sure it is up to date. Can you verify your social and date of birth?" I gave them to her. "Thank you. Ms. Price, I see the policy here. Universal Life. Face value. $500,000. $500,000. My knees went weak. I sat down heavily on the floor. I did not have $500,000 in life insurance. I had a small policy through work for $50,000. This was 10 times that. "Okay," I said. My voice sounded thin. "And the beneficiary?" "Currently. The primary beneficiary is listed as Gordon Price. Father." The room spun. "Gordon Price. Since when?" I asked. "The change was processed. Let's see, about 6 months ago. Before that, it was the estate. 6 months. They had been planning this for 6 months. And Karen?" I asked. "Is there a rider on the policy?" "About Living benefits? Let me check. Yes, ma'am. There is an accelerated death benefit rider for critical illness or permanent incapacitation. If the insured is deemed legally incapacitated and requires long-term care, the guardian can access the funds for their maintenance. There it was. They didn't have to kill me. They just had to delete me. If they got the guardianship, they controlled me. If they controlled me, they could claim the accelerated benefits. They could cash out $500,000 to take care of me, funnel it through Cedarway Holdings for management fees, and leave me a husk in a state-run facility once the money ran out. Thank you. Karen, I said, that is all I needed. I hung up. I sat on the floor of my childhood bedroom, surrounded by the ghosts of who I used to be. I looked at the old posters on the wall. I looked at the growth chart penciled onto the doorframe. My father had measured my height there. He had cheered when I grew an inch. Now, he was calculating how much I was worth if I never grew again. I stayed in the room until evening. I needed the shadows to lengthen. I needed the courage that comes with the dark. At 7 o'clock, I went downstairs. Gordon and Tessa were eating dinner, meatloaf. The smell was rich and comforting, a perverse contrast to the reality of the house. Gordon looked up. Hungry? He asked. I sat down at the table. I didn't take a plate. I folded my hands in front of me. I called Northlake today. I said. The silence that followed was absolute. The clinking of silverware stopped. Tessa froze with a fork halfway to her mouth. Gordon slowly lowered his knife. Oh? Gordon said. His voice was very quiet. Yes, I said. I was confused about the letter, so I called. They told me you are the beneficiary on a $500,000 policy I never signed up for. Gordon stared at me. His face was unreadable. It was like looking at a stone carving. Bella, he said. Why? Dad? I asked. Why is there a policy? And why are you the beneficiary? Gordon slammed his hand on the table. The plates jumped. Because someone has to look out for you, he shouted. The explosion was sudden, violent, and calculated. He stood up, towering over the table. You think you are so independent? You think you have it all figured out? You are a mess. Bella, you are spiraling. I am not spiraling. I said. I kept my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. I am asking a question about insurance fraud. Fraud? He spat the word out. You call it fraud? I call it planning. You have no husband. You have no children. If something happens to you, like it did this week, who picks up the pieces? We do. I do. He was pacing now, working himself up. We took out that policy to protect the family assets in case you became a burden. And look at you. Paranoia, accusations. You are proving us right every second you open your mouth. He stopped. He took a deep breath. Then, like a switch had been flipped, the anger vanished. His shoulders slumped. He looked at me with wet, pleading eyes. Honey, he said. His voice broke. You are confused. That policy you signed it 3 years ago. Don't you remember? No. I said. I didn't. You did. Tessa chimed in. She was nodding vigorously. We were all here. It was Christmas. You said you wanted to make sure Dad was okay if anything happened to you. You were so sweet about it. I looked between them, the rehearsed narrative, the gaslighting. They were trying to rewrite my memory in real time. I never signed it. I said, just like I never signed the Cedarway papers. Gordon walked around the table. He stood behind my chair. I could feel his heat. You are sick, Bella, he whispered. You are forgetting things. Important things. That is why we are doing this. We have to save you from yourself. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but I stood. I am going to bed. I said. Gordon didn't move. He blocked my path to the hallway. For a second, I thought he wouldn't let me pass. Then he stepped aside. Get some rest, he said. We have a big week next week. I walked up the stairs. I felt their eyes on my back, boring holes into my spine. I locked the door. I wedged the chair. I pushed the dresser in front of the door, too. I opened the secure laptop. I emailed Maya. Confirmed. 500,000 policy. Beneficiary Gordon. Accelerated benefits rider. They are going to drain me dry. Maya replied 2 minutes later. Okay, this is it. The motive is solidified. But Bella, we are running out of time. If they have the hearing on Monday, and they have the doctor's letter, and they have the evidence of your financial instability, they will win the temporary order. Once they have that, they can isolate you legally. You won't be able to hire a lawyer. You won't be able to access your money. What do I do? I typed, we need to know the docket number. Maya wrote, we need to know if the petition is actually filed, and we need to know if there is a capacity evaluation scheduled. If there is, you need to not be there. I can't leave. I wrote, I am a prisoner. Then we stopped playing defense. Maya wrote, we need leverage. We need to catch them in a lie so big the judge cannot ignore it. You have the recordings. You have the Cedarway docs. But we need to break their story. I stared at the screen. Leverage. They were counting on me being the victim. They were counting on me being the confused, scared daughter who cried and denied and looked unstable. I looked at the file labeled Cedarway. I looked at the file labeled Northlake. I didn't just need to survive Monday. I need to blow Monday up. I have an idea. I typed, but it is dangerous. Dangerous is all we have left. Maya replied. I closed the laptop. I lay in the dark, listening to the silence of the house. Downstairs. I knew they were smiling. I knew they were texting Elliot. I knew they were counting the money they would harvest from my life. Let them smile. Monday was coming, and I was going to bring the storm with me. Saturday morning broke with a deceptive stillness. The sky was a bruised purple, threatening rain, and the house felt like a pressurized chamber. I knew the timeline now. Monday morning at 9 o'clock. That was when they would walk into a courtroom and strip me of my personhood. I had 48 hours to stop them. I needed to get to the courthouse. It was closed on weekends for filings. But the records clerk, Mrs. Gable, often worked Saturday mornings to catch up on the backlog. It was a small-town quirk I remembered from high school. If I could just confirm the filing existed, I would have the starting gun. But I had no keys. I had no rideshare. I went downstairs at 7. Gordon was drinking coffee, staring at a list on a notepad. He looked up, his eyes scanning me for cracks. Good morning, Bella, he said. You look rested. I slept well. I lied. He tapped the notepad. I am running a few errands today, picking up some things for the house. I think it is best if you stay here. Rest. Tessa is going to be working in the garden, so you won't be alone. I am not an invalid. Dad, I said, actually, I told a friend of mine from the city I would pick up some records for her. She used to live here. It is just at the county clerk's office. I thought I would walk. Gordon's hand tightened on his mug. Walk? It is 3 miles to town. I need the exercise. I said, the doctor said light cardio is good for stress. He hesitated. He was weighing the risks. If he forbade me from walking, it looked controlling. If he let me go, I was out of his sight. But what could I do on a walk? I had no car. I had no suitcase. Just don't overdo it. He said finally, and take your phone. I want to be able to reach you. I walked out the door before he could change his mind. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth. I walked fast, my sneakers slapping against the pavement. I did not look back. I knew Tessa was likely watching from the window, tracking my progress, maybe even texting Elliot that the subject was on the move. The walk took 45 minutes. By the time I reached the brick facade of the Maple Hollow County Courthouse, my lungs were burning. The building was mostly dark, but the side door near the clerk's office was unlocked. I slipped inside. The hallway smelled of floor wax and old paper. I walked to the glass partition of the records division. Mrs. Gable was there, a woman with glasses on a chain and a sweater that had seen better decades. She looked up, startled. We are closed to the public. Hon, she said. I know. Mrs. Gable. I said. I pressed my face close to the glass. It is Bella Price, Gordon's daughter. She squinted. Bella? My goodness, I haven't seen you since you were a teenager. I forced a smile. I am back for a bit. Listen, I am actually doing a favor for a friend, but while I am here, I just wanted to check something. I heard there might be a filing under my name, a civil matter. I just wanted to grab the case number so I can give it to my lawyer. Mrs. Gable's face changed. The pleasant recognition vanished, replaced by a flustered, professional mask. She glanced at her computer screen, then back at me. I cannot give out information on pending matters. Bella, you know that. I just need the number. Mrs. Gable. Just to make sure I'm prepared. She typed my name. I saw the reflection of the screen in her glasses. She stopped typing. She stared at the monitor for a long moment. Then she looked at me with an expression that sat somewhere between pity and fear. I cannot help you, she said. Her voice was tight. Is there a filing? I asked. She stood up, gathering a stack of folders as if to shield herself. Bella, you need to go. I cannot discuss this. She started to turn away, then stopped. She looked back at me, her eyes darting to the door to make sure we were alone. You should really have an attorney for that, she whispered. Then she hurried into the back room and shut the door. For that. She hadn't said for what. She hadn't asked, what filing? She had seen it. It was real. It was in the system. I walked out of the courthouse. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was racing. I found a bench in the small park across the street, hidden behind a cluster of oak trees. I pulled out the secure laptop from my tote bag. I had wrapped it in a sweatshirt so it wouldn't look suspicious. I tethered it to my phone. I opened the encrypted chat. It is real. I typed to Maya. The clerk confirmed it without confirming it. She looked like she saw a ghost. A moment later, a new chat window popped up. It wasn't Maya. Bella, this is Rowan Kincaid. Maya briefed me. We have no time for pleasantries. Rowan Kincaid, the lawyer Maya swore by. He was a shark who specialized in complex fraud and protective orders. What do I do? I typed, I am logging into the state judiciary portal now. Rowan wrote, if they filed for an emergency hearing, it will be in the ex parte queue. Hold on. I watched the cursor blink. 1 minute, 2 minutes, a squirrel ran across the grass in front of me, carefree and oblivious. I envied it. Got it. Rowan wrote, I held my breath. Petition for temporary emergency guardianship. Rowan wrote, petitioners, Gordon Price and Tessa Price. Subject, Bella Price. Reason, acute mental instability, paranoid delusions, financial incapacity, immediate risk of self-harm. Self-harm? I typed, I have never hurt myself. They are citing the fainting episode as a suicide attempt. Rowan wrote, they claim you starved yourself, and they have an exhibit attached, a letter from a doctor, Aris Thorne. Who is Dr. Thorne? He is listed as the clinical director of Harborstone Wellness Center, Rowan explained. The letter states he evaluated you via a crisis consult 3 days ago and determined you lack the capacity to make medical or financial decisions. I stared at the screen. 3 days ago I was in the kitchen, listening to them plot. I had never spoken to a doctor, Thorne. I had never been to Harborstone Wellness Center. It is a lie. I typed, I have never met him. It is a forgery, Rowan corrected, or a paid-for consult based on hearsay. This is a common tactic. Bella, they find a doctor who runs a volume practice. They pay a rush fee. They provide a family history. And the doctor signs a form saying you are dangerous. It gives the judge the medical cover to sign the order. How do we fight it? I asked. If the judge sees a doctor's note, I lose. We prove the doctor is a liar. Rowan wrote, but we need to be careful. If we just accuse him, it is your word against a medical professional. We need them to admit it. Admit it? We need to trap them. Rowan wrote. Do you have a second phone number? I have a burner app. I typed. Good. Here's the plan. 20 minutes later, I was still sitting on the bench. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I opened the burner app. I selected a number with the same area code as Harborstone Wellness Center. I composed a text message. I addressed it to Tessa's mobile number. Harborstone admin. Doctor, Thorne requires final confirmation on the evaluation notes before submission to the court, Monday. Please review attachment sent to your email. I waited. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves. If Tessa was smart, she would call the clinic. If she was smart, she would ask who this was. But Tessa wasn't smart. She was arrogant, and she was panicked about the timeline. My phone buzzed. Tessa, I don't see an email. Just use the same language as last time. Emphasize the paranoia and the money issues. We need it to stick. I stared at the screen. I screenshotted it. I screenshotted it again. Just use the same language as last time. It proved coordination. It proved she was dictating the medical diagnosis. It proved she was in contact with the clinic about the content of a medical evaluation for a patient she claimed was incapacitated. I forwarded the screenshot to Rowan. Boom, Rowan replied. That is the nail. Now what? I asked. Now we get the records? Rowan wrote, I need you to pull your pharmacy history and your insurance explanation of benefits for the last year. We need to prove, doctor, Thorne has never billed you, never prescribed to you, and that you were nowhere near his office on the date of the alleged consult. I can do that. I typed, one more thing. Rowan added, they are going to ramp up the pressure. They need you to break before Monday. If you scream, if you throw something, if you run away, they win. They will use it to corroborate the paranoia mentioned in the text. You have to be a stone, Bella, gray rock. Give them nothing. I walked back to the house. The walk back felt different. I wasn't fleeing anymore. I was marching. When I entered the kitchen, the atmosphere was suffocating. Gordon was at the table, Tessa was at the counter, and sitting between them was Janice Rule. Janice was a neighbor who had known me since I was 5. She was a kind, soft woman who baked zucchini bread and believed everything people told her. She was the perfect weapon. Bella! Janice cried when she saw me. She stood up and rushed over, enveloping me in a perfume-heavy hug. Oh, honey, your dad told me everything. I stood stiff in her arms. What did he tell you? Janice? That you are struggling, she said, pulling back to look at me with watery eyes. That you are having a hard time distinguishing what is real. Oh, sweetie, there is no shame in it. I looked at Gordon over Janice's shoulder. He was watching me with a look of profound, staged concern. We are just having a little family meeting, Gordon said gently. Janice wanted to help. Sit down. Bella, Tessa said. She pushed a chair toward me. I sat. I placed my phone on the table, face down. I tapped the record button on the side of the screen before I set it down. We just want you to agree to the help, Janice said. Taking my hand, Gordon says there is a facility. Harborstone? It sounds lovely. He says you are fighting it. I am not fighting help. Janice, I said. My voice was calm, monotone. I am fighting lies. See? Tessa said. She looked at Janice. See how defensive she is? That is the paranoia. I am not paranoid. I said. I looked at Janice. Did you know Dad took out a life insurance policy on me without my knowledge? Janice blinked. She looked at Gordon. Gordon sighed. A long, suffering sigh. Bella, we discussed this. You signed that policy. You are forgetting again. This is exactly what the doctor was talking about. The gaps in memory. He turned to Janice. She thinks we are stealing from her. Janice. She thinks her own family is trying to hurt her. It breaks my heart. It is okay. Gordon, Janice said, patting his arm. She doesn't mean it. It is the illness talking. I looked at them. It was a masterpiece of social engineering. They had brought in a neutral third party to witness my delusions. If I got angry, if I shouted that they were liars, Janice would testify that I was irrational, so I did nothing. I pulled my hand away from Janice gently. I appreciate your concern. Janice, I said, I really do, but I am tired. I am going to go to my room. But we haven't decided anything, Tessa snapped. You need to sign the voluntary admission papers. If you sign them now, we don't have to do the hearing. It will be easier. Easier for whom? I asked. For you, Tessa cried. She stood up. You are making this so hard. You are ruining this family. Bella. I stood up. I picked up my phone. I am not signing anything, I said. I walked out of the room. Behind me, I heard Tessa sob, a loud, theatrical sob. She is getting worse, Gordon said to Janice. I think we have to do it the hard way. I went to my room. I moved the dresser in front of the door again. I sent the audio file to Rowan. They tried an intervention. I wrote, they tried to get me to sign voluntary admission papers for Harborstone. Do not sign anything, Rowan replied. They are desperate. They know the court hearing is a risk. They want you to surrender your rights voluntarily so they don't have to prove the case. Evening fell like a shroud. I didn't go down for dinner. I ate a protein bar I had found in my old gym bag in the closet. At 10 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Bella? It was Tessa. Go away. Tessa, please, she said. Her voice was small, through the wood. She sounded like the sister I used to know, the sister I used to protect on the playground. I just want to talk. No dad, just us. I hesitated. Then I remembered the text. We need it to stick. I didn't move the dresser. I stood on the other side of the door. Talk through the door, I said. I heard her sigh. You know Mom would be ashamed of you, she said. The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother had been gone for 10 years. She was the only soft thing in this house. What did you say? I asked. She would be ashamed. Tessa repeated. Her voice grew stronger, harder. Seeing you like this? So selfish. Dragging Dad through the mud. He is old, Bella. He just wants to know you are safe, and you are acting like a monster. I closed my eyes. I felt the tears prickling. This was their real weapon, not the law, not the money, the guilt, the deep, programmed guilt of the eldest daughter who was supposed to fix everything. For a second, I wavered. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was confusing things. Maybe the signature was mine and I had forgotten. Then I thought of the number. $500,000. I thought of the rider. Accelerated death benefits. They didn't want me safe. They wanted me liquidated. My mother wouldn't be ashamed. I said to the door. My voice was steady. She would be calling the police. Silence. Then Tessa laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. You are going to lose, Bella, she whispered. And when you do, I am going to make sure you never get out of that facility. I heard her footsteps walk away. I went back to the laptop. I was done being the victim. Rowan. I typed, I am ready to file the report. Good. Rowan replied. Go to the State Insurance Department website. File a consumer complaint for fraud. Reference the policy number. State clearly. Policy opened without consent. Beneficiary changed without consent. Suspected intent to trigger accelerated benefits via fraudulent guardianship. I opened the browser. I found the form. I typed steadily. Every keystroke felt like a brick being pulled out of their wall. Name of insured, Bella Price. Policy number from the phone call. Nature of complaint, identity theft/insurance fraud. I attached the photo of the servicing letter with the missing page. I attached the audio recording of Gordon admitting he was the beneficiary. Submit. The screen flashed. Complaint ID 88920-FR. AUD. Your report has been received. I took a screenshot. Filed. I told Rowan. Perfect. Rowan said, Now, I am filing the emergency motion to dismiss and request for sanctions. I am attaching the text from Tessa. I am attaching the affidavit from your real doctor. I am attaching the bank records showing the Cedarway forgery. Will the judge see it before Monday? I asked. The judge will see it Monday morning, Rowan said. At the hearing. We are going to ambush them. They think I won't be there. I wrote, They think I'm trapped. You need to be there, Rowan said. You need to walk into that courtroom and stand next to me. Can you get there? I thought about the keys. I thought about the blocked rideshare. I will get there. I wrote, even if I have to crawl. One warning, Rowan wrote. Once they realize you are fighting back, really fighting back, they might try to provoke a physical altercation. They need a police report. They need a 911 call. If they can get the police to take you to the psych ward tonight or tomorrow, You miss the hearing, and if you miss the hearing, they win by default. I looked at the door, the dresser, the chair. I won't leave this room. I wrote, "Stay safe, Bella." Rowan wrote, "See you in court." I closed the laptop. I sat in the dark. My bladder was full, but I didn't dare go to the bathroom down the hall. I used an empty water bottle from the recycling bin in the closet. It was degrading. It was humiliating, but it was necessary. I sat with my back against the wall, watching the strip of light under the door. Shadows moved back and forth. I heard whispering. They were restless. They could sense the resistance. Sunday passed in a blur of tension. I stayed in the room. Gordon pounded on the door at noon. "Bella, open this door. We need to inspect the room. I am resting." "Dad," I called back. "Like you said, you are acting like a child," he shouted. I didn't answer. Short sentences. Calm voice. Tessa tried at 4. She tried to pick the lock. I watched the doorknob turn, the metal scraping, but the chair held. The dresser held. She kicked the door. "You crazy bitch!" she screamed. "Come out here!" I recorded the sound of her kicking. I recorded the scream. Receipts over rage. Night fell again. The last night, I packed my bag. The laptop, the phone, the chargers, the file folder with the original hard copies I had stolen from the office. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the maple trees. The same trees I had climbed as a child. This house had been my whole world once. Now it was a crime scene. At 3 a.m, the house was silent. I checked the window. It was a 20-foot drop to the hydrangeas. I couldn't jump. I had to go through the house. I moved the dresser, inch by inch, lifting it so it wouldn't scrape the floor. My muscles burned. Sweat ran down my back. I removed the chair. I turned the lock. I opened the door. The hallway was a mouth of darkness. I stepped out. My socks silent on the carpet. I crept past Gordon's room. I could hear his snoring, a rhythmic, oblivious sound. I crept past the guest cottage view. The lights were out. I made it to the stairs. Creak, the third step. I had forgotten the third step. I froze. I waited. Nothing. I continued down. I reached the kitchen. I didn't turn on the light. I went to the back door. I unlocked the deadbolt. It slid back with a heavy think. "Who is there?" The voice came from the living room. I spun around. Gordon was sitting in the armchair in the dark. He wasn't asleep. He was waiting. He stood up. He was wearing his bathrobe. He looked massive in the shadows. "Where are you going?" "Bella?" he asked. I gripped the strap of my bag. "I am going for a walk," I said. "At 3 a.m, he asked. He took a step toward me. "I don't think so. Get out of my way." "Dad," he laughed. A low, humorless chuckle. "You are not going anywhere. You are sick, and I'm not letting you leave this house until the ambulance comes to take you to Harborstone." He lunged. He didn't move like an old man. He moved fast. He grabbed my arm. His fingers dug into my bicep. "Let go!" I hissed. I twisted away. But he held on. He dragged me toward the living room. "Tessa!" he yelled. "Tessa! Get down here! She is trying to run!" I heard footsteps pounding above us. I panicked. If Tessa came down, if they pinned me, it was over. They would call 911. They would say I attacked them. I looked at Gordon. I looked at his hand on my arm. Receipts. I didn't hit him. I didn't scratch him. I went limp. I dropped my weight. It caught him off guard. He stumbled forward. I wrenched my arm free. I didn't run for the door. I ran for the kitchen counter. I grabbed the heavy ceramic bowl where he kept his keys. I turned. Gordon was coming at me again. I threw the bowl, not at him, through the window. Crash. The glass shattered. The sound was deafening in the quiet night. "What the hell?" Gordon froze. "I am leaving." "Dad," I said. I held up my phone. I was recording. "I am leaving. You are physically restraining me. I have it on video. If you touch me again, I will send this to the police, and I will send it to the insurance investigator who is already looking into your policy." Gordon stopped. The color drained from his face even in the dark. "Investigator?" he whispered. I filed the report. I said, "They know about the policy. They know about the missing page. Tessa ran into the room. She was holding a flashlight. "Grab her!" she screamed. "No!" Gordon barked. He held up a hand to stop Tessa. He looked at me. His eyes were wide with a dawning horror. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of the audit. "Let her go," he said to Tessa. "Dad!" Tessa shrieked. "Let her go," he roared. He looked at me. There was hate in his eyes, pure and distilled. "Go," he spat. "Run away. It won't matter. The judge will see you for what you are tomorrow." I didn't wait. I backed out the door. I walked backward down the driveway until I hit the street. Then I turned and ran. I ran until my chest burned. I ran until the house was a speck in the distance. I reached the 24-hour gas station on the edge of town. I went inside. The attendant looked at me, sweaty, panting, clutching a laptop bag. "Can I call you a cab?" he asked. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 4 a.m. "No," I said. "I found a booth in the corner. I have a court hearing at 9. I am going to wait right here." I sat down. I bought a black coffee. I watched the sun come up over Maple Hollow. It illuminated the grime on the windows and the empty road. I was tired. I was sore. I was terrified. But I was free. And I was ready to burn their house down. The coffee in the styrofoam cup had gone cold, but the caffeine was doing its job. I sat in the booth of the gas station until the sky turned the color of a bruise. Somewhere between purple and gray. At 5 a.m, a car pulled into the lot. It was not a police cruiser. It was a battered Subaru with a coexist sticker on the bumper. Maya. She did not ask questions when she walked in. She simply wrapped her arms around me. I buried my face in her shoulder, smelling lavender detergent and stale cigarette smoke. And for the first time in 4 days, my shoulders dropped. "We have 4 hours," she said against my hair. "Let's go to war." The drive to Maya's apartment was a blur of motion and strategy. I had spent the last 48 hours existing in a state of animal survival. But now, with the heater blasting and the city skyline approaching, the pieces of the puzzle began to snap into a terrifyingly clear picture. We had been busy. Even while I was trapped in that room, the digital world had kept turning, and the evidence we had dredged up was damning. On Saturday, before the house had gone into total lockdown, Maya had flagged a series of alerts on the Cedarway Holdings account. The alerts were screaming. "They are moving the money," Maya said, handing me her tablet as we drove. "Look at the timestamps." I looked. Cedarway Holdings had initiated 3 wire transfers in the last 24 hours. They were not small amounts. They were clearing out the operating capital, moving it to an account in the Cayman Islands. "They know." I said, "They know I saw the papers. They are scrubbing the trail." "Exactly," Maya said, "but they were sloppy. They moved the money after the notice of the hearing was generated. It looks like dissipation of assets. If we can prove you are not the one pushing the buttons, it looks like theft. And we had the proof, or at least, the silhouette of it." Maya had worked a miracle with the bank. She had used her paralegal credentials to bully a regional manager at Maple Hollow Community Bank. Citing the fraud report I had filed with the state, she demanded preservation of surveillance footage from the date the signature card was updated. The manager had sent a still image. It was grainy, taken from a high angle, but it was enough. The figure at the counter was wearing a heavy coat and a scarf, but the hair was unmistakable. It was blonde. It was chopped in a bob. "I have dark hair. I have always had dark hair." "Tessa," I whispered, "and look at the teller's log." Maya said, "She entered the bank at 10 a.m. Where were you on October 12th, 2 years ago?" I closed my eyes, searching my calendar. I was at a conference in Chicago. I said, "I have the flight receipts. I have the hotel bill." "Done," Maya said. "We have a blonde woman impersonating you in Maple Hollow while you were sitting in a seminar 3 states away. But the net was wider than just Tessa." Maya had dug into Elliot Vance. He wasn't just a boyfriend. He was a specialist. "I found his employment history," Maya said. "He used to work for a debt settlement outfit called Vantage Point. They were shut down 3 years ago. Class action lawsuit. They were accused of cutting and pasting client signatures onto settlement agreements to collect fees without authorization. He is a forger. I said, he is an artist, Maya corrected, and he is teaching your sister how to paint. But even as we built the wall of evidence, the opposition was firing back. My phone, which I had finally turned back on, pinged with a voicemail. It was David, my boss. I didn't want to listen to it. I held the phone away from my ear, letting the speakerphone bridge the silence of the car. Bella, this is David. HR has completed a preliminary review of the complaints. Given the severity of the allegations regarding your financial erraticism and the hostility reported by your team, we are placing you on unpaid administrative leave effective immediately. We need you to surrender your badge and laptop. We will be in touch regarding the investigation. I stared at the dashboard. They took my job. I said, my voice sounded hollow. They actually took my job. It is part of the plan. Bella, Maya said gently. She reached over and squeezed my knee. They need you to be destitute. They need you to be desperate. If you have no income, you look like a financial risk. If you look like a risk, the guardianship looks like a rescue. I felt a cold, hard rage crystallize in my chest. It was no longer about safety. It was about annihilation. They didn't just want to control me. They wanted to strip me down to the studs so they could rebuild me as a ATM. We arrived at Maya's apartment at 6. I showered, scrubbing the smell of fear in my father's house off my skin. I put on a suit Maya had borrowed from a friend, a sharp navy blue blazer and slacks. I needed to look like a fortress. Rowan was waiting for us in the kitchen. Surrounded by stacks of paper, he looked tired, but focused. Eat, he ordered, sliding a plate of toast toward me. You need blood sugar. The judge is going to test you. I forced the toast down. Rowan laid out the strategy. We are not going in there to defend you, he said. We are going in there to prosecute them. We have the affidavit from your real doctor. He confirms your fainting spell was stress-induced and that he never referred you to Harborstone. We have the pharmacy records showing 0 prescriptions for antipsychotics. And Northlake? I asked. Rowan smiled. It was a shark's smile. Northlake is terrified. I called their legal department yesterday and told them we were filing a motion to compel the full application packet. They sent it over an hour ago. He pulled a document from the stack. Look at the electronic signature log, he said. I looked. The application for the life insurance policy was signed digitally via DocuSign. The IP address, Rowan said, tapping the paper. It resolves to a residential Comcast account in Maple Hollow. My dad's house, I said. And the time of signature? Rowan asked. Christmas Day, 3 years ago, at 4 in the afternoon. I remembered that Christmas. I was there. But at 4 in the afternoon, I was asleep on the sofa. I had come down with the flu. They signed it while I was sleeping in the next room. I said, Rowan nodded. They didn't just forge it. They waited until you were physically present in the house so the geolocation would match. It was premeditated. Bella. Long game. I shivered. The betrayal was so deep it felt structural, like the beams of my life were rotting out. I thought about the night before. I thought about the conversation that had sent me running into the dark. It hadn't happened during the escape. It had happened earlier, before I moved the dresser. Gordon had come to the door. He hadn't yelled. He had spoken through the wood in a voice that was terrifyingly reasonable. Open the door. Bella, he had said. Let's just talk. I hadn't opened it, but I had listened. You think I am the villain, he had said, but you have to understand the economics of this family. You have always been the strong one, the capable one. You don't need help. Tessa needs help, he continued. Tessa needs a future. You have had your turn. You have the career. You have the city life. Is it so wrong for you to share? Share? I had asked through the door. You are trying to imprison me. We are trying to balance the scales, he had whispered. You owe us. Bella. For raising you. For pushing you. You are the investment that paid off. Tessa is the one who needs the dividend. If you cooperate. He had promised. You will be taken care of. We will make sure you have a nice room, a nice view. You can rest. You have been working so hard. Taken care of. That was the phrase that had broken the lock on my fear. Taken care of meant managed. It meant silenced. It meant I would be a breathing asset, kept alive only as long as the policy required, my autonomy harvested to feed Tessa's failures. I looked at Rowan. I am ready. I said. The courthouse was a bustle of mundane misery. People were there for traffic tickets, for divorces, for the debris of life. I walked through the metal detector, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I saw them immediately. They were sitting on a bench outside courtroom 302. Gordon was wearing his Sunday best, a tweed jacket that made him look like a kindly grandfather. Tessa was wearing a cardigan and no makeup. She looked small, fragile, and utterly sympathetic, and next to her was a man I had never met, Elliot Vance. He was handsome in a generic, slippery way. He wore a suit that fit too well and had the solicitous posture of a grieving relative. He was holding Tessa's hand, rubbing her knuckles with his thumb. When they saw me, the tableau froze. Tessa's eyes went wide. She grabbed Elliot's arm. Gordon stood up. His face flushed a deep, mottled red. You, he hissed. He looked around, checking for security. You are supposed to be... I am supposed to be where? I asked. My voice was ice. At Harborstone? In a cell? Bella, please, Elliot said. He stepped forward, his voice smooth like warm syrup. Lower your voice. We are all just worried about you. You ran away in the middle of the night. Your father was frantic. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had forged my name and spent my money. Hello, Elliot. I said, I hear you are an artist. His smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. The mask slipped, and I saw the predator underneath. I don't know what you mean, he said. The bailiff opened the door. All parties for Price versus Price. Come in. We walked in. The courtroom was cold and smelled of stale pine cleaner. The judge was a woman with gray hair and a face carved out of granite. Judge Holloway. We took our seats, Gordon and Tessa on the left, me and Rowan on the right. The family's attorney was a man named Mr. Greaves. He looked bored. He stood up and began his opening. Your Honor, he said, we are here on an emergency basis because Ms. Bella Price is in crisis. She has a history of erratic behavior, recently culminating in a physical collapse and a psychotic break. She has become paranoid, believing her family is stealing from her. She has threatened self-harm. She is unable to manage her finances, having squandered significant funds on frivolous business ventures. He gestured to the table. We have a letter from Dr. Aris Thorne, confirming her incapacity. We have statements from her employer regarding her instability. Her father and sister are asking for temporary guardianship to ensure she receives the medical care she desperately needs. Judge Holloway looked at me. Her gaze was heavy. Ms. Price? She said, you are here. You seem lucid. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I gripped the table. I am lucid. Your Honor. Rowan stood up. Your Honor. Rowan said, this petition is not a rescue mission. It is a heist. Mr. Greaves jumped up. Objection. Judge Holloway raised a hand. Sit down. Counsel. Mr. Kincaid. Explain. Rowan opened our binder. We will show that there is no medical crisis. Your Honor, the letter from Dr. Thorne is a fabrication. Miss Price has never met Dr. Thorne. We have her pharmacy records and her insurance history to prove it. He laid the papers on the judge's bench. We will show that the frivolous business ventures are a shell company created by the petitioner's boyfriend, Mr. Elliot Vance, using a forged signature. He laid the Cedarway documents down. And we will show that the motivation for this guardianship is not care, but a $500,000 life insurance policy with an accelerated death benefit, taken out on Ms. Price's life without her knowledge, listing her father as the beneficiary. Gordon made a noise in his throat. It sounded like a strangled animal. Rowan dropped the final document, the Northlake digital signature log, onto the bench. This is not a family trying to help a sick daughter. Your Honor, this is a family trying to liquidate her. The room went silent. Judge Holloway picked up the documents. She put on her reading glasses. She read for a long time. Gordon was gripping the table so hard his knuckles were white. Tessa was crying. But it was a silent, terrified weeping. Elliot was staring straight ahead, his jaw working. Judge Holloway looked up. She looked at Dr. Thorne's letter. Then she looked at the affidavit from my real doctor. Mr. Greaves, she said. Her voice was very quiet. Did you verify the authenticity of this medical evaluation? Mr. Greaves looked at Gordon. He looked at the papers. He started to sweat. I relied on the representations of my clients. Your Honor, Judge Holloway turned her gaze to Gordon. Mr. Price, did your daughter visit Harborstone Wellness Center? Gordon stood up. He tried to put on the benevolent father mask, but it was slipping. It was melting under the heat of the truth. She forgets things, Your Honor. She is sick. We just want to help her. Did she visit the center? The judge repeated. Gordon looked at Tessa. Tessa looked down. We spoke to the doctor. Gordon said. We gave him the history. He said it was enough. So she was not examined? The judge asked. She refused to go. Tessa blurted out. She stood up, her face blotchy. She refuses everything. She is ruining us. Sit down, the judge snapped. Judge Holloway leaned forward. I am denying the petition for emergency guardianship, she said. Gordon let out a breath. But I am not finished, the judge said. Her eyes were hard. Based on the evidence presented by Mr. Kincaid, specifically the allegations of insurance fraud and forgery, I am ordering a referral of this file to the district attorney's office for investigation. Gordon froze. I am also issuing a temporary protective order. The judge continued. Mr. Price, Mrs. Price, Mr. Vance, you are to have no contact with Bella Price. You are not to access any accounts in her name. You are not to approach her residence or place of employment. But the policy, Gordon shouted. He lost control. He slammed his hand on the table. We paid the premiums for 3 years. You cannot just let her walk away. The judge looked at him with profound disgust. Mr. Price, if what I am reading is true, you should be less worried about the premiums and more worried about the prison time. She banged the gavel. Hearing adjourned. The sound of the gavel was the sweetest thing I had ever heard. Rowan turned to me. We won, he whispered. I looked across the aisle. Mr. Greaves was packing his briefcase with frantic speed, trying to distance himself from his clients. Gordon was slumped in his chair, looking suddenly very old and very small. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the floor, muttering something about ungrateful. Tessa was staring at me. Her face was a mask of pure hate. Elliot Vance stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at Tessa, then at Gordon. Then he looked at the door. He started to walk away. Elliot, Tessa cried. Where are you going? He didn't look back. He walked out of the courtroom, leaving them alone in the wreckage. I walked past them. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream at them for the years of manipulation, for the gaslighting, for the fact that I would never be able to trust a kind gesture again. But I remembered my strategy. Receipts over rage. I stopped near Gordon. I didn't get too close. I recorded the policy cancellation this morning, I said softly. Gordon looked up. His eyes were watery voids. It is over. Dad, I said. I walked out of the courtroom. In the hallway. The air felt different. It was lighter. Rowan was smiling. Maya was waiting by the water fountain, grinning like a Cheshire cat. I walked over to them. My knees finally gave out, and I had to lean against the wall. You okay? Maya asked. I don't know. I said. Gordon came out of the courtroom. He saw me. For a moment. He looked like he was going to approach. He took a step, his mouth opening to hiss something. Probably that I had destroyed everything, that I was a traitor. Then he saw the bailiff standing behind me. He stopped. He turned and walked the other way, his footsteps heavy and uneven. Tessa followed him, sobbing into her hands, asking what they were going to do about the audit. I watched them go. They were small figures receding down a long, sterile hallway. I had won. I had kept my freedom. I had exposed the lie. But as I stood there, shivering in the aftermath of the adrenaline, I realized that the victory was Pyrrhic. I had my autonomy, but I had lost my history. The house, the memories, the illusion of a family that loved me. It was all gone. It had all been a long con. I took a deep breath. "Let's go," I said to Maya. "Where?" she asked. "Anywhere." I said, "Anywhere but here." I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, blinding sun. I was Bella Price. I was 33 years old. I was unemployed. I was homeless. I was alone. But I was free. And for the first time in my life, the signature on the page was mine. The courtroom was a box of stale air and fluorescent light, a place where lives were reduced to paper and procedure. I sat at the mahogany table, my hands folded on top of the binder Rowan had prepared. I could feel the heat of my father's glare burning into the side of my neck, but I did not turn. I stared at the judge, Judge Halloway, whose face was a mask of bored skepticism. Mr. Greaves, the family's attorney, had finished his opening salvo. He had painted a portrait of a woman unraveled, Bella Price, the hysteric, the paranoid, the financial disaster. He had done his job well. Now it was our turn. Rowan Kincaid stood up. He did not look like a man who was about to defend a guardianship case. He looked like a man about to perform an autopsy. He picked up the letter from Dr. Eris Thorne, the document that was supposed to seal my fate as an incapacitated ward of the state. "Your Honor," Rowan said, his voice carrying to the back of the room without shouting. "We would like to draw the court's attention to Exhibit A, the medical evaluation from Dr. Thorne." The judge adjusted her glasses. "I have read it. Mr. Kincaid, it is quite damning." "It would be." Rowan agreed. "If it were real." Mr. Greaves jumped up. "Objection. Counsel is making baseless accusations against a medical professional." Rowan didn't flinch. He handed a folder to the bailiff to pass to the judge. "We took the liberty of contacting the Harborstone Wellness Center this morning. Your Honor, included in that folder is an affidavit from their current clinic administrator. They confirmed that Bella Price is not, and has never been, a patient at their facility." The judge flipped the page. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Furthermore," Rowan continued, "the letterhead used in Dr. Thorne's evaluation was retired by the clinic 4 years ago. The logo has since changed, and the contact number listed below Dr. Thorne's signature, it does not route to the clinic's switchboard." Rowan paused for effect. He looked directly at Elliot Vance, who was sitting very still in the gallery. "We ran a trace on the number. It is a voice over IP line, a disposable number, generated by a mobile app. When you call it, it does not go to a medical secretary. It goes to a voicemail box that has not been set up." The judge looked up from the folder. She looked at Mr. Greaves. "Mr. Greaves," she said. Her tone had shifted. It was no longer bored. It was sharp, dangerous. "Did you call this number to verify your evidence?" Mr. Greaves was sweating. I could see a bead of perspiration track down his temple. "I assumed my clients provided authentic documentation." "Your Honor?" Rowan sat down. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. "Ms. Price," the judge said, "please take the stand." I stood up. My legs felt like lead. But I walked to the witness box. I raised my right hand. I swore to tell the truth. I sat down. I looked at the gallery. Gordon was pale, his lips pressed into a thin white line. Tessa was chewing on her thumbnail, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. "Ms. Price?" Rowan asked from the table. "Why do you believe your family has filed this petition?" I took a breath. I had practiced this. Short sentences, no speculation, facts, because they want to control my assets. I said, "Do you have evidence that they planned this before your medical episode last week?" "Yes. Please explain." I leaned into the microphone. I did not cry. I did not let my voice tremble. I channeled every ounce of the cold. Hard rage that had kept me alive in that house, on the night of my arrival, I overheard a conversation through the ventilation system in the guest room. I heard my sister say, "We don't need her anymore," I heard my father say. "We have to find a way to get rid of her." Mr. Greaves stood up slowly. "Your Honor, this is hearsay. It is the hallucination of a paranoid woman. I have the recording." I said, "Mr. Greaves froze. Rowan pressed a button on his laptop. The audio played over the courtroom speakers. It was scratchy, hollow, echoing through the ductwork, but the words were unmistakable. "The hearing date," my father's voice whispered, "and the doctor's letter. Get it before she talks to anyone." The recording stopped. That was recorded 4 days ago. I said, "Before there was a hearing, before there was a doctor's letter, they were not reacting to a crisis. Your Honor, they were scripting one." The judge looked at Gordon. Her expression was unreadable, but her posture had stiffened. Rowan stood up again. "We are not finished. Your Honor, we need to address the question of financial incapacity. The petitioners claim Ms. Price is irresponsible with money. They cite her involvement with a company called Cedarway Holdings." Maya Larkin stood up from the bench behind Rowan. She handed another stack of documents to the bailiff. Maya had been digging for 72 hours straight. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with the thrill of the kill. "Cedarway Holdings is a shell company registered in Riverton," Rowan explained. "The petitioners claim Ms. Price is an authorized signer. They have submitted bank resolutions bearing her signature." Rowan projected an image onto the screen on the wall. It was the signature card from the bank. "This signature is a forgery," Rowan said. "But we don't just ask you to take our word for it. We track the microtransactions used to verify the account." He pointed to a list of charges. $49, $79. These fees were deducted from Ms. Price's personal account to create a paper trail of consent. But look at the dates. He flipped to the next slide. It was a surveillance photo, grainy, black and white, taken from the ceiling of the Maple Hollow Community Bank. "On the day the signature card was updated in person," Rowan said, "this individual was at the counter. The figure on the screen was wearing a heavy coat. But the hair, a blonde bob, was distinct. Ms. Price has dark hair," Rowan said. "She was in Chicago at a conference on this date. We have her flight records. The woman in this photo, however, bears a striking resemblance to the petitioner." Rowan turned and pointed a finger at Tessa. Tessa gasped. She shrank back in her seat, pulling her cardigan tight around her body. This was not a business venture gone wrong. Rowan said, "This was identity theft. They built a fake company, forged her name, and siphoned money to make her look incompetent. It was a long con, Your Honor, designed to strip her of her rights so they could access the real prize." "The real prize?" the judge asked. Rowan dropped the final document, the Northlake insurance policy, a $500,000 life insurance policy. Rowan said, "With an accelerated death benefit rider, payable to the guardian if the insured is incapacitated." The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing for a second. Judge Holloway took off her glasses. She rubbed the bridge of her nose. She looked at Gordon Price. "Mr. Price," she said. Her voice was very quiet. "Do you have a response to this?" Gordon stood up. He looked small. The bluster was gone. The benevolent patriarch mask had dissolved, leaving only a greedy, frightened old man. We just wanted to make sure she was safe," he stammered. "The policy it was for her care." "Sit down," the judge snapped. She turned to Mr. Greaves. "Counsel, I am denying the petition for emergency guardianship." Mr. Greaves nodded quickly. "Understood. Your Honor, we will withdraw the—" "I am not finished." Judge Holloway cut him off. She looked at the stack of evidence before her, the fake letter, the forged signature, the surveillance photo. "This court is not a tool for fraud," she said. "I am referring this entire file to the district attorney's office for an immediate investigation into insurance fraud, identity theft, and perjury." Tessa let out a sob. It was a high, thin sound. "And Mr. Greaves," the judge added, "you are not withdrawing anything. You are staying on record until the investigator speaks with you. Do not let this case vanish." She banged the gavel. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. "Court is adjourned." The bailiff moved toward the family. I watched them. Gordon looked like he had been struck by lightning. Tessa was weeping into her hands. Elliot Vance was already moving toward the exit, his face blank, calculating his escape route. I stood up. My knees were shaking, but I did not fall. "We did it," Maya whispered, grabbing my hand. We walked out of the courtroom. The hallway was crowded with people waiting for the next session, but the space around us felt empty, cleared by the blast radius of the verdict. I heard footsteps behind me, fast, heavy steps. "You," a voice hissed. I turned. Gordon was there. His face was purple. He was breathing hard, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You destroyed everything," he whispered. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man who had sat at the head of the table for 33 years. "I didn't destroy anything." "Dad," I said, "I just turned on the lights." Tessa came up behind him. Her face was streaked with mascara. She looked terrified, but beneath the fear, there was still that terrifying transactional calculation. "Bella," she pleaded. She reached for my arm. "Bella, wait. The investigation. You have to stop it. If they audit the accounts, if they look at Cedar Way—" She stopped. She looked at me with wide, wet eyes. "What do you want?" she asked. "Just tell us what you want. We can make a deal. We can sign the house over to you. Just call the judge back." I stared at her, even now, in the ruins of their scheme. She thought in trades. She thought affection was a currency and silence was a product to be bought. "I don't want the house, Tessa," I said. "Then what?" she cried. "What do you want?" "I want you to forget my name," I said. I turned around. Rowan was standing by the elevator. He handed me a folder. "Protective order is filed," he said, "and we just sent the freeze notices to the banks. They won't be able to move a dime out of Cedar Way or their personal accounts until the audit is done." "And Northlake?" I asked. "Flagged," Rowan said. "They opened a formal fraud case 10 minutes ago. Your father won't see a penny of that policy." I nodded. It was done. The machinery of justice was grinding them down. Just as they had tried to grind me, I walked out of the courthouse. The sun was blinding. I took a deep breath, tasting the exhaust and the ozone of the city. I hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Greyhaven." I said, "Just drive." I returned to my apartment in Greyhaven that night. It felt strange, like entering a museum exhibit of my own life. The mail was piled on the counter. The plants were wilted. The air smelled stale. I sat on my sofa and looked at the walls. I was safe. The legal threat was gone, but the victory felt hollow, a crater where my foundation used to be. The fallout was slow and painful. My job was the first casualty. Even with the truth exposed, the damage to my reputation was done. The anonymous complaints and the HR investigation had created a cloud that no amount of exoneration could fully clear. I was labeled as drama-prone, a liability. I negotiated a severance package and resigned before they could find a reason to fire me. I started therapy 2 weeks later. My therapist was a woman named Dr. Evans. She didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me with respect. "We are not here to fix you," she told me in our first session. "You are not broken. You survived a siege. We are here to make sure you don't carry the war with you." It was hard work, harder than the legal battle. I had to unlearn 30 years of conditioning. I had to learn that silence didn't mean safety, and that love didn't mean utility. 6 months passed. The investigation into my family was ongoing. I heard snippets through Maya. Gordon was facing charges for insurance fraud. Tessa was looking at identity theft. Elliot Vance had vanished, likely to another state to run another con. I thought I was free. Then the envelope arrived. It was a Tuesday. I checked my mailbox in the lobby of my building. There was a plain white envelope, no return address. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of me. I was standing on the steps of the Maple Hollow courthouse. The day of the hearing, I was looking away from the camera. my hair blowing in the wind. The angle was from across the street, high up, telephoto lens. I turned the photo over. There was a sticky note attached to the back. "You got lucky." That was all. No signature, no demand. I stood in the lobby, the blood draining from my face. "You got lucky." It was a message. It wasn't from Gordon or Tessa. They were too busy drowning in legal fees. It was from Elliot, or someone connected to him. Someone who wanted me to know that I hadn't won because I was smart, or because I was right. I had won because they had slipped up, and they were still watching. I went upstairs. I locked the door. I looked at my apartment. I looked at the life I had tried to piece back together. It wasn't safe. Not really. As long as I was Bella Price of Greyhaven, I was a target. I was a loose end in a con that had gone wrong. I made a choice. I picked up my phone. I called the credit bureaus. I initiated a total freeze on my credit files. I called my landlord. I broke my lease. I paid the penalty without blinking. I called the phone company. I disconnected my number. I packed my life into 10 boxes. I sold the furniture. I sold the car that Gordon had tried to take from me. I rented a U-Haul. I didn't tell Maya where I was going. I told her I needed time. She understood. She gave me a burner phone and told me to call when I was ready. I drove west. I drove until the landscape changed, until the green hills of the east gave way to the flat, open expanse of the plains, and then the jagged peaks of the mountains. I found a small town in a state where no one knew the name Price. I rented a small house with a view of the snow-capped peaks. I got a job at a library, shelving books in the quiet, dust-moat silence. I go by a different name now. Not legally, I didn't want to commit fraud myself, but socially, to the people in town. I am just the quiet woman who likes mystery novels. Sometimes, at night, I wake up and I hear the whisper in the vent. We have to find a way to get rid of her. But then I turn on the light. I check the locks. I look at the mountains that stand like sentinels outside my window. I am not the spare anymore. I am not the checkbook. I am not the victim. I am the one who walked away. Freedom has a cost. It cost me my family. It cost me my history. It cost me my name. But as I sit on my porch, drinking coffee that I paid for with money that is solely mine, watching the sun come up over a world that is wide and indifferent and beautiful, I know one thing for sure. It was a price worth paying. Thank you so much for listening to My Sister Said. We don't need her anymore. We have to find a way to get rid of her, Dad whispered. This story explores the terrifying reality of financial abuse and the courage it takes to break free from the people who are supposed to protect us. I hope Bella's journey resonated with you. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please drop a comment below and tell me your country or city. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more tales of justice, resilience, and the sweet taste of reclaiming your life. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Bella's shoes? Stay safe and keep watching the vents.